You felt the shift, not outside of you, inside. Something changed in your spirit. You are not who you were 6 months ago. You are not praying the same. You are not thinking the same. You are not trembling the same. And you know it. Chosen one, this is not imagination. This is integration. You were never ordinary. You were marked before you had language for it. Marked for warfare. Marked for favor. Marked for authority. But authority must be activated. It must be integrated. And when it is, everything changes. The way you speak changes. The way you endure changes. Even the way the enemy approaches you changes. Because something in you has risen. There are 9 unmistakable signs your soul has finally integrated its supreme celestial authority. Not borrowed authority, not emotional hype, not spiritual performance, integrated authority, rooted, sealed, embodied. And if you recognize yourself in this, it will confirm what your spirit has been whispering. Listen carefully. This message will not resonate with everyone. Only the chosen will feel the weight of it. If you are here, it is not random. It is alignment. Stay with me, lean in, and as you do understand, this is not just information, it is activation. First, you no longer beg heaven, you speak from it. You remember when you used to plead. You used to ask over and over, God, please, God, why God, when you felt small? You felt unheard. You felt like you were trying to convince heaven to move. But something shifted. Now when you pray, it is different. Calm, certain, measured. You do not beg, you declare. You do not plead for permission. You align and command. Do you see the difference before you were asking from fear? Now you are speaking from position. This is integration. Your tone has changed. Even when you whisper, there is weight in it. Even when you are silent, there is authority in your atmosphere. You are not trying to get heaven's attention anymore. You know you already have it. That desperation you once carried, it was not weakness. It was training. The silence you endured, it was not rejection. It was alignment. Heaven was not ignoring you. Heaven was building you. Because if authority had been placed in immature hands, it would have destroyed you. But now you are steady. Now you are grounded. Now when opposition rises, you do not panic. You speak, and things shift. Not because you are loud, but because you are aligned. You feel it, don't you? That inner certainty, that quiet fire, that unshaken presence. This is what happens when your soul stops visiting authority and starts living from it. Darkness senses it too. That is why the warfare looks different now, sharper, more targeted, because you are no longer a potential threat. You are an active one. You are not begging for breakthrough. You are enforcing it. Stand firm in this. Do not shrink back into old language. Do not return to spiritual begging. You have crossed a threshold, and once authority is integrated, it cannot be undone. This is only the beginning. Second, chaos around you no longer invades you. You still see it. You still hear it, but it does not enter you. Have you noticed that rooms can be loud? People can be panicking. Situations can be collapsing. And yet, something in you stays still, not numb, not disconnected, still. There was a time when other people's emotions controlled your atmosphere. Their fear became your fear. Their urgency became your anxiety. Their drama pulled you into warfare that was never assigned to you. But now it hits you and falls, like waves against stone. This is not indifference. This is authority integrated. You used to think your sensitivity was a weakness. You felt overwhelmed, drained, overstimulated. You wondered why the world felt so heavy. But what if that was training? What if heaven was strengthening your inner ground? Because authority without stability is dangerous. And stability is forged in storms. You survived emotional chaos. You endured relational turbulence. You walked through betrayal, misunderstanding, pressure. Not to break you, to anchor you. Now when others spiral, you observe. When others shout, you measure your words. When others react, you respond. There is a difference. Reaction is earthly. Response is sovereign. You no longer chase peace. You carry it. Read that again in your spirit. You carry it. Peace is not something you are trying to get from the world. It is something flowing from within you. And darkness hates that. because chaos is one of its oldest weapons. Confusion, noise, emotional manipulation. But it cannot manipulate what it cannot move, and you are no longer easily moved. Have you noticed how certain people become uncomfortable around your calm? They want you to panic with them. They want you to react. They want you to engage in emotional warfare. But you don't. You remain centered, grounded, unshaken. This is not passivity. This is rank. When your soul integrates celestial authority, your nervous system follows. Your body learns safety. Your mind learns stillness. Your spirit refuses intimidation. The enemy used to bait you through chaos. Now he exposes himself when he tries. Because your stillness reveals who is operating in fear. Light does not argue with darkness. It stands, and darkness exposes itself. Not everyone will understand this shift in you. Some will call you cold. Some will call you detached. Some will say you changed. Yes, you did. You stopped letting chaos dictate your identity. You stopped letting noise define your movement. You stopped confusing intensity with importance. Listen carefully. Calm is not weakness. Calm is control. Calm is power under submission. Calm is evidence that your spirit is seated above the storm, not drowning in it. This is how you know your authority is real. It holds under pressure. It holds under attack. It holds when everything around you shakes. And if you can remain steady in chaos, it means you are being prepared for greater arenas. Because higher levels require deeper stillness. Warfare intensifies at higher ranks, but so does composure. You are not being hardened. You are being enthroned internally. And what comes next requires even sharper discernment, even deeper sight, even greater authority. Third, you discern energies instantly without overthinking. It happens before logic, before analysis, before explanation. You walk into a room and you know. You hear someone speak and something inside you shifts. Not paranoia, not cynicism, recognition. Have you noticed how quickly you read what is beneath the words, "Now someone smiles," but your spirit tightens? Someone praises you, but something feels off. Someone agrees with you, but your inner alarm does not silence. You used to ignore that. You used to override it. You told yourself you were being dramatic, too sensitive, too guarded, but you were not unstable. You were untrained. And training requires exposure. You had to experience betrayal. You had to experience manipulation. You had to experience subtle spiritual attacks wrapped in kindness, not to make you bitter, but to calibrate you. Now your body signals truth before your mind can debate it. A slight tension in your chest, a pause in your spirit, a quiet inner check. That is not anxiety. That is intelligence. Spiritual intelligence. Integrated authority sharpens perception. You no longer need proof to sense misalignment. You no longer need a scandal to confirm deception. You feel it. Instantly, darkness used to hide behind charm, behind flattery, behind religious language. But now deception feels loud to you, even when it whispers, even when it pretends to bless you. Why? Because light exposes vibration, and your soul has been elevated above surface appearances. This is deeper than intuition. This is rank recognition. You can sense who carries peace. You can sense who carries envy. You can sense who approaches with assignment and who approaches with agenda. And this has cost you. Let's be honest. You have lost connections because of this clarity. You have stepped back when others leaned in. You have chosen silence when others demanded access. They called you distant. They called you suspicious. But what they did not understand is this: you were protecting the anointing. You were guarding the authority you fought to integrate. Not everyone will understand your discernment, because not everyone carries it. The world calls it overthinking. Heaven calls it awareness. The world says, give everyone a chance. But the Spirit says, test the fruit. You do not hate people. You read patterns. You do not assume evil. You detect inconsistency. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. That is growth. That is elevation. That is danger to the enemy, because deception cannot control what it cannot confuse. And you are no longer easily confused. Listen carefully. Discernment is not a defensive weapon. It is a governing one. It positions you above manipulation, above seduction, above distraction, and higher levels require sharper sight, because the warfare becomes more subtle as your authority increases. What fooled you before cannot fool you now, but what comes next will require even stronger boundaries, even firmer identity, even less need for approval. Fourth, you have lost the need to prove who you are. Feel that. You do not rush to explain yourself anymore. You do not scramble to defend your intentions. You do not exhaust your spirit trying to make everyone understand you. Something in you has settled. There was a time when misunderstanding pierced you deeply, when being misjudged felt like injustice, when silence felt like weakness. You wanted to clarify, to correct, to convince, because you knew who you were. But you did not yet trust that who you were was enough. So you argued, you over-explained, you defended your heart to people committed to doubting it, but now you see it clearly. Not everyone is confused. Some are committed to misunderstanding you, and you no longer wrestle for approval. That is growth. That is integration. Validation does not tempt you the way it used to. Compliments do not inflate you. Criticism does not dismantle you. You are not driven by applause, and you are not destroyed by rejection. Why? Because your identity is no longer hanging in the hands of people. It is anchored in position. Authority does not beg to be recognized, it stands. It does not shout to be heard, it carries weight without noise. Have you noticed how your silence unsettles people now? You used to fill space. Now you let it sit. You used to rush to defend your name. Now you let time reveal truth. That silence is not passivity. It is power under control. Darkness thrives on reaction, on emotional defense, on impulsive explanation. But when you do not react, you break its strategy. You refuse to be baited. You refuse to step down from your position to argue in the mud. This is warfare at a higher level. The enemy used to provoke you through accusation, through gossip, through distortion, and you took the bait because you felt the need to correct the narrative. But now you understand something deeper. Truth does not panic. Truth does not scramble. Truth does not chase reputation. Truth stands, and time serves it. Listen carefully. When your soul integrates celestial authority, your ego dies, not your confidence. Your ego. You no longer need to be seen as powerful. You simply are. You no longer need to win every debate. You conserve your energy for your assignment. This has cost you. Relationships shifted. Some walked away because you stopped performing, because you stopped explaining yourself into exhaustion, because you stopped shrinking to make others comfortable. And that loss hurt, but it was necessary, because your destiny cannot be built on constant self-defense. It must be built on unshaken identity. You are no longer fighting to prove you are chosen. You know you are. And that quiet certainty is more threatening to darkness than loud declarations ever were. Stand in that. Do not return to old patterns. Do not resurrect the need for approval. The next level requires even stronger separation, even clearer boundaries, even less explanation. Fifth, isolation no longer feels like rejection. It feels strategic. Let that settle in you. There was a time when being alone wounded you, when invitations stopped coming, when messages slowed down, when you felt forgotten. You questioned yourself. You wondered if you were too much, too intense, too different. You thought maybe you had failed socially. Maybe you were being punished. But now you see it clearly. You were being positioned. Isolation was not abandonment. It was alignment. Heaven was narrowing your circle because your assignment was expanding. Not everyone can go where you are going. Not everyone can breathe at the altitude of your calling. And when your soul integrated authority access to you had to change, your circle became smaller, but your clarity became sharper. You lost noise and gained vision. You lost constant company and gained constant revelation. You began to notice something. When you are alone, you are not empty. You are charged. Ideas flow, discernment sharpens, strength returns, peace deepens. This is not loneliness. This is preservation. Darkness isolates to weaken. Heaven isolates to strengthen. There is a difference. The world isolates you to make you feel unwanted. God separates you to make you unstoppable. You were removed from certain environments because your authority would have been diluted there. You were distanced from certain people because your frequency no longer matched theirs. And instead of becoming bitter, you became refined. Instead of becoming resentful, you became focused. That is power awareness. You are not just surviving solitude. You are stewarding it. You are using it. You are building in it. Have you noticed how your thinking has elevated in isolation? How your standards have risen? How your tolerance for dysfunction has dropped? That is not arrogance. That is awareness. You sense you are being preserved for something weightier, something bigger, something that requires emotional discipline, spiritual maturity, inner stability. Isolation taught you how to stand alone without collapsing. It taught you how to self-soothe without distraction. It taught you how to hear God without background noise. And now you are not afraid of being alone. You are dangerous there. Because when you are alone, you hear strategy. You receive instruction. You recover strength. The enemy thought separation would break you, but it built you. And here is the deeper truth. You are no longer chasing belonging. You are guarding alignment. You are no longer asking to be included. You are discerning who is assigned. That shift changes everything. Listen carefully. If you are comfortable being alone, you cannot be controlled by fear of loss. If you are comfortable being alone, you cannot be manipulated by access. If you are comfortable being alone, you become sovereign. And sovereign spirits are difficult to intimidate. You are not isolated. You are being elevated. You are not excluded. You are being preserved. And what is coming next will require even stronger boundaries, even firmer standards, even sharper protection of your energy. Sixth, your boundaries have become non-negotiable. Feel the weight of that. You do not apologize for protecting your peace anymore. You do not over-explain your limits. You do not bend just to keep others comfortable. Something hardened in you, not your heart, your perimeter. There was a time when guilt controlled you. When someone said, if you love me, you would, and you folded. When someone cried, manipulated, pressured, and you surrendered access. You confused compassion with compliance. You confused love with self-sacrifice. But now you see clearly. Spiritual trespassing often wears the mask of affection. Not every request is pure. Not every connection is safe. Not every open door is from God. And you have learned the difference. Access to you is no longer granted by emotion. It is earned by alignment, by integrity, by consistency. You no longer tolerate chaos disguised as passion, control disguised as care, possession disguised as loyalty. Why? Because your authority is sacred, and sacred things require gates. You guard your energy like territory now, not aggressively, but intentionally. You understand something most people do not. Every open door is an exchange. Every conversation is an exchange. Every relationship is an exchange. And you cannot afford careless exchanges at this level. The warfare intensified when your authority integrated. You felt it. Subtle attacks, emotional pulls, sudden conflicts. Why? Because the enemy tests gates before he attacks cities. And you are a city now, fortified, structured, watched, chosen. Have you noticed how certain people react when you say no? When you delay access, when you do not respond immediately? Their frustration reveals their expectation of entitlement. But you are no longer available for spiritual consumption. You are not a resource for dysfunction. You are not a supply for insecurity. You are not responsible for everyone's emotional stability. That realization freed you. Guilt used to manipulate you. Now it exposes itself. You no longer obey guilt. You obey discernment. Listen carefully. Boundaries are not walls against love. They are filters for purity. They protect your assignment. They protect your clarity. They protect your strength. And strength must be guarded. Because the higher you rise, the more strategic the attacks become. You are not being difficult. You are being disciplined. You are not being distant. You are being discerning. You are not isolating. You are fortifying. Stand firm in this. Do not reopen doors that heaven closed. Do not lower standards to revive expired connections. Do not trade authority for approval. You have crossed into a level where protection is part of your calling, where guarding your spirit is obedience, where saying no is spiritual maturity. And this boundary shift will trigger something else. Because when you guard your energy, your presence becomes heavier, sharper, more disruptive to darkness. Seventh, You trigger reactions without trying. You do not raise your voice. You do not compete. You do not demand attention. Yet something happens when you enter a room. Energy shifts. Conversations change. Eyes watch you. Whispers begin. Have you noticed that some people warm up to you instantly? Drawn, curious, quietly respectful? And others, they stiffen. They analyze you. They look for flaws. They create tension where you offered none. You used to be confused by that. You thought maybe you did something wrong. Maybe you were too intense, too quiet, too confident. But now you understand. Your presence exposes what people carry. Light does not attack darkness. It reveals it. You are not creating insecurity. You are uncovering it. You are not provoking envy. You are illuminating comparison. And when your soul integrated authority, that illumination became stronger. You cannot dim it. You cannot hide it. You cannot shrink it without betraying yourself. There was a time when projection hurt you deeply, when people accused you of things that were not yours, when they labeled you arrogant for being grounded, cold for being disciplined, intimidating for being calm. But that was not about you. That was about what you reflect. You reflect discipline to the undisciplined. You reflect confidence to the insecure. You reflect clarity to the confused. And not everyone is ready to see themselves clearly. So they resist you. They challenge you. They attempt to humble you. But you are no longer confused by projection. You recognize it instantly. When someone competes with you for no reason, you see the insecurity. When someone mocks your focus, you see the envy. When someone withdraws because you will not shrink, you see the intimidation. And you do not internalize it anymore. That is power. Listen carefully. The stronger your light becomes, the sharper the contrast grows. You cannot carry celestial authority and expect universal comfort. Your presence will disrupt what is misaligned. Your stillness will irritate chaos. Your integrity will agitate compromise. And that is not a flaw. That is confirmation. Darkness does not argue with darkness. It coexists. Darkness reacts to light. So if reactions have increased around you, do not panic. Do not shrink. Do not apologize. Stand firm. Because this is what happens when you become spiritually undeniable. You carry something that cannot be erased. Not personality, not charisma, authority integrated, embodied, sealed. You are not trying to stand out. You simply do. And as this intensifies, your awareness must sharpen again, because the next layer is not about how others react. It is about how you move through timing itself. Eighth, you sense divine timing before it happens. You feel shifts in the unseen, before announcements, before doors open, before conversations change. Something moves in the atmosphere, and you know. You cannot always explain it, but you feel it. A release, a restraint, a subtle green light, or a quiet warning. There was a time when delays frustrated you, when waiting felt like punishment, when closed doors felt like rejection. You pushed. You tried to force outcomes, you moved early, you moved emotionally, and you paid for it. But now delay does not irritate you. It instructs you. You have learned something dangerous. Not everything that is possible is permitted. Not everything that is available is assigned. And timing is everything. You no longer chase opportunity. You discern release. You no longer respond to pressure. You respond to alignment. That is authority integrated. The world moves from urgency, from fear of missing out, from comparison. But you move from precision. You have felt it. Moments where you waited and clarity sharpened. Moments where you paused and danger revealed itself. Moments where you held your ground and the wrong option dissolved on its own. That is not coincidence. That is calibration. Heaven trained your patience, not to slow you down, but to make you lethal in motion. Patience used to feel like weakness, like passivity, like stagnation. Now it feels like power under control, because when you move, it is decisive. When you speak, it lands. When you step, it shifts things. Why? Because you are not guessing anymore. You are synced. You are no longer trying to outrun destiny. You are walking with it. Have you noticed how your anxiety about the future has decreased? How comparison no longer pulls at you the same way? How other people's timelines do not disturb you? That is timing awareness. You trust the orchestration, you trust the delay, you trust the silence between seasons, and darkness hates that because impatience is one of its favorite traps. It pushes you to move too early, to speak too soon, to attach too fast, to abandon positioning. But you have matured past that bait. You can feel when something is not ripe. You can feel when something is not sealed. You can feel when something is not yours. And you wait, not lazily, strategically. Listen carefully. When your soul integrates celestial authority, you stop reacting to clocks. You respond to cues. You stop racing the world. You move when released. And that kind of precision is unstoppable. Because when the moment comes, you will not hesitate. You will not doubt. You will not second guess. You will execute. And the execution will carry weight. Because it was timed. Because it was sanctioned. Because it was aligned. You are entering a season where timing will become even sharper, even heavier, even more consequential. And what follows after this is the final confirmation. Ninth, you understand now that authority attracts warfare, and you are no longer afraid of it. Feel the gravity of that? There was a time when opposition confused you, when attacks made you question your worth, when resistance felt like rejection. You wondered, if I am chosen, why is this so hard? But now you see, the higher the rank, the stronger the resistance, the greater the light, the sharper the shadow. Opposition is not proof you are off course. It is proof you are advancing. Spiritual resistance no longer feels like punishment. It feels like confirmation, because darkness does not mobilize against the irrelevant. It does not strategize against the powerless. It does not study those who carry nothing, but it studies you. It watches you. It attempts to anticipate you. Why? Because your authority is active, integrated, embodied. You used to shrink when tested. You used to retreat when pressure rose. You used to question yourself when warfare intensified. Not anymore. Now when pressure increases, you expand. When attack rises, you anchor deeper. When intimidation attempts to whisper, you stand taller. Because you finally understand this truth, you are not just protected by heaven, you are authorized by it. There is a difference. Protection shields you. Authorization commissions you. Protection keeps you safe. Authorization makes you dangerous. And darkness has already been notified. The escalation you feel, it is not random. It is reaction. You stepped into your authority. You integrated it. You stopped begging. You stopped shrinking. You stopped explaining. You stopped chasing. You started standing. And when you stand in celestial authority, realms shift. Assignments activate. Targets adjust. Listen carefully. Do not misinterpret the warfare. Do not mislabel the pressure. It is not there to break you. It is there because you are no longer invisible. You are marked, sealed, positioned, and you are not fragile. You are forged. You are not accidental. You are assigned. And nothing about your journey has been wasted. Every delay refined you. Every betrayal sharpened you. Every isolation strengthened you. Every misunderstanding solidified you. You were being built for this level. Stand firm. Do not retreat. Do not apologize for your authority. Do not shrink to calm insecure spirits. Let them adjust. Let darkness react. You remain unmoved, unshaken, unstoppable. You are chosen, not by accident, not by emotion, by design. Heaven backs you. Heaven covers you. Heaven authorizes you. And what is authorized by heaven cannot be erased by earth. If this resonates in your spirit, declare it. Comment the number 9 below, seal it, acknowledge it, step into it consciously. And if you are ready to continue rising, subscribe. Because this is not the end of your awakening. It is the confirmation of it. You were never ordinary. You were never random. You were chosen, and nothing formed against you will stand.